Hello to you, and thanks for tuning into this video. My name is Linda Smith, and this message is about Black Lives Matter through my particular point of view. This is my personal view, not as a member of our church's Justice Action Ministry. I also want to offer an invitation to anyone listening to please contact me if you too would like to do a video about a relevant justice topic. I was in high school and college in the 1960s, and I am in awe of the wisdom in the words of Anne Brennan, a white Southern ally of the 1960s civil rights decade. Quote, "The battle is and always has been a battle for the hearts and minds of white people in this country. The fight against racism is our issue," unquote. She also taught, and I paraphrase, that being an anti-racist was painful, but not destructive. Once we white people admit we're wrong about race, a great creativity bursts forth. That is what I'm feeling in the Zoom meeting Monday nights, our discussions about racism, and also anticipating when we are able to get back to the beloved conversations. We can't deny the pain, but the outcome of staying in the conversation and taking action will be a better me, a better us, and a better community. I remember the open house campaign in the 1960s and 70s when a Black couple was steered away from a suburban home by a real estate agent. A white couple would offer a dummy purchase of the home, and lawyers made sure it was then purchased by the Black couple. Still today, NPR reports that a Black couple gets a lower price when selling their home as compared to a white couple for the very same home. The only wealth many people have is in their home, including my parents. So the wealth gap continues. While Black Lives Matter began as a response to police violence against Black people, it has expanded to all the issues of injustice that Black and other people of color face. Here in Columbus, I joined with the People's Justice Project to protest the killing of 2 Black young men and 1 Black child by police in Columbus. Henry Green in 2016, Tyree King in 2016, and Jerome Thomas in 2017. Now, with the COVID-19 pandemic, the veneer of our social structure has been stripped bare to put on full display the damage and the pain of racism in healthcare, education, housing, food security, voting rights. The Black Lives Movement has evolved to address all of it. The hashtag BLM began with the July 2013 acquittal of George Zimmerman on trial in Florida for shooting Trayvon Martin. Black Lives Matter became a national movement with the shooting of Mike Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and Eric Garner, the choking of Eric Garner in New York City. The killing of Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old, in November of 2014 in Cleveland, Ohio, by a policeman while he was playing. This gutted me because one of my children died at the age of 12. I thought that if Tamir had been a white 12-year-old playing in a suburb, he would have been a playful child just getting into mischief, but never shot for it. No, Tamir Rice was a Black child in the city. Tamir was shot while playing. Black Lives Matter held a conference in Cleveland the following year to further build the movement for change. And the violence has not stopped. Say the name of George Floyd and many others too numerous to say here. In fact, Black leaders point out that the violence against Black people, just because they are Black, is a 400-year-old problem in the United States, the longest social justice movement in history. The founders of Black Lives Matter, Patrisse Cullors, Alicia Garza, and Opal Tomei, continue to build the present movement. Many leaders in a widespread network means that killing one person does not kill the movement. The killing of George Floyd sent millions of people in every state and in international cities this spring and summer out into the streets. The rallies here in Columbus that I attended outside during daylight were peaceful. There was space to social distance and people wore masks. There are now national and international offshoots of Black Lives Matter, from In Defense of Black Lives, the Movement for Black Lives, Law Enforcement Accountability Project, the 1619 Project in Schools, Black Land and Powers Reparations, National Bailout, to name a few. Organizing at the local level remains of prime importance so that there can be a fast mobilization in response to police violence. There's also recognition that systemic cultural problems need to be addressed on multiple fronts in multiple ways at different levels of government. Locally, we have BQUIC, which is the Black, Queer, and Intersectional Collective, the Columbus Freedom Coalition, the Freedom Bloc, Showing Up for Racial Justice, and of course, the People's Justice Project, all leading together. The Movement for Black Lives Electoral Justice Project has proposed legislation called the Breathe Act. This act has 4 pillars. 1, divesting federal resources from incarceration and policing and ending criminal legal system harms. 2, investing in new approaches to community safety, utilizing funding incentives. 3, allocating new money to build healthy, sustainable, and equitable communities for all people. And 4, holding officials accountable and enhancing self-determination of Black communities. This legislation would address what the Reverend Dr. William Barber's Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, called the 5 systemic interlocking evils. 1, systemic racism. 2, systemic poverty. 3, ecological devastation. 4, militarism and the war economy. And 5, a distorted moral narrative. Reverend Dr. Barber spoke about this when he was here in Columbus for our UU General Assembly in 2016. He continues to build his movement, along with so many others. A UU minister and professor of religion and Black studies at Florida State University, the Reverend Dr. William R. Jones, wrote, "Is God a white racist?" He examines questions of American identity and history and concludes that the perceived safety of white people is built on many myths and assumptions about race that are illusions. Even our cherished 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, can be flipped to portray a spider's web of racism in which Black people are entrapped and are kept in their so-called place. I believe that in this struggle for equity, laying guilt trips on white people is not helpful. Most of us white people have already had enough shame, if not from our family, from larger cultural and social forces. In fact, Tandeka, a Unitarian Universalist theologian, posits that our very identity as white people is built on shame, on the feeling that something must be wrong with us. As we must raise our self awareness and knowledge about racism, we must also take action. Black Lives Matter is also making connections with other isms. Elementary and high school students from Dublin to Worthington to Hilliard are sharing stories of microaggressions, such as in the article, an article in the Columbus Dispatch. Quote, a Black girl overheard classmates saying her suburban school was becoming ghetto because more students who look like her were enrolled. Quote, a Muslim child was called a terrorist. Quote, Asian students were mocked in the cafeteria for their ethnic meals and the shape of their eyes. Blythe Barrow, a staff person in Ohio, Faith in Public Life, puts the spotlight on city budgets. Quote, as people of faith, we know that budgets are moral documents. And when the city of Columbus spends 1/3 of its budget on policing that is more and more aggressive and militaristic, we are saying that God values systems of punishment and surveillance over systems of care and connection. Right now, from this very year into the next and the next, we have the opportunity to do something to make racial reconciliation, restorative justice, community, and resources available to heal the racial wounds of our community. It's our time to keep on keeping on. Thank you very much.